Let's get rid of the elephant in the room. You were a guest on Hell's Kitchen.
Yeah, so I got chosen and I went to hell. I went to hell.
I think we found a title for today's show.
Yeah. I've had pans thrown in my face.
You've had pans
thrown in my face. You know, being on Hell's Kitchen and having Chef Ramsay yell at you, it kind of was like nothing, really. And he basically said, you either get better or you F off. Every day is a day to get better.
You're listening to the NEI Pioneer Podcast. This podcast is all about telling the authentic stories of the people in our region. If you're new, be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts to stay up to date on our latest episodes. And if you're looking for more stories like this one, be sure to check out our backlog of episodes from season 1. Today, we have a local celebrity on the podcast, Magali Ort. Magali competed on season 23 of Hell's Kitchen titled Head Chefs Only. Along with competing in one of the most well-known cooking competitions, she is also the executive chef at Fort Wayne's own BakerStreet Steakhouse. Take a dive with us into the world of reality cooking competitions, fine dining, becoming a chef, and more in today's episode.
I'm Jonathan Sackett, host of today's NEI Pioneer Podcast, with my co-host,
Callie Herring,
producer extraordinaire, and our guest today. Very excited about this, Magali Ort.
Hello.
Did I pronounce it properly?
Yes,
This
yes.
sounds great. And we talked to you, about a month ago, I think, before we got you on the show.
Yeah.
And we've been talking about you ever since, just because it's
Oh,
so
that's awesome.
exciting. She is the executive chef at BakerStreet Steakhouse here in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Let's get rid of the elephant in the room, that you were a guest on Hell's Kitchen.
Yes.
And I don't know if that's what we would call it, but you were on the show.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So can we talk about this for a little bit?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So how did you get on the show? How did that come about?
So I originally tried out for season 21 in 2021.
And they're up to season 23.
23.
Okay.
23. So that just ended up not working out. I didn't get chosen for that one. So through the grapevine, I heard that they were casting for Hell's Kitchen again. And at that point, I was here in Indiana. I was working at a private university at the time.
Wait, how close were you to getting on the show for season 22?
I was an alternate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So that just ended up not working out at that time. But you know, everything happens for a reason. I really feel like it came to me at a point in my career where I was feeling lost because I'm new to Indiana. I was at a university. Restaurants are my life. So it was just a callback to the restaurant life. And yeah, so I got chosen and I went to hell. I went to hell.
I think we found a title for today's show. Yeah. How long were you on the show? How long did that last for you?
So it was filmed back in May. So it was a 3-week period that they asked us to reserve out of our lives. So it's really crazy too, because, you know, we basically are like, we go on there, they take our phone away, we don't have contact with any loved ones, and I think that was the hardest part for a lot of us, was not having that. But at the end of the day, you know, we were there to win. And I think it just helped. I know I can speak for myself that it helped validate myself and my talent, because it was a head chef only competition. And that was insane because everyone was just so talented. They are talented and they're so good. And just being able to compete against some of the best chefs in the country is wild.
Oh, yeah. I'm not going to beat the Hell's Kitchen dead horse here, but I just got a couple things I got to get in here. So do they call you in and you have to cook something right then and there, or how does that work?
So it is a very, very strenuous interview process. So I believe I got interviewed by producers 5 to 6 times.
That's about right.
So lots of rounds to go through. And then because they've seen me before, it was kind of expedited this time. But no.
But they remembered you.
They remembered me.
Okay.
Yeah, they remembered me. And it's just a lot of, you know, going through your resume and all that stuff. So nobody actually cooks to try out for the show.
Really?
Yeah. So I think that's part of the magic too. Huh. We had to provide our resumes and like food photos and all that stuff.
Oh, okay. Wow, cool.
Another elephant in the room. You just have to ask about Gordon Ramsay, since he's so iconic. What was it like being with him and interacting with him so often.
Well, you have a smile on your face, so that couldn't have been too bad.
It was, I feel like I blacked out during the whole experience.
I feel like I would too.
Honest. It was, especially like the first dinner service, he kept yelling, Magali, Magali, Magali. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like,
He's saying my name.
It's just like you're taken aback. Like, it was an out-of-body experience because I'm like, oh my gosh, Chef Ramsay's yelling my name right now. But he's yelling my name because he needs something from me. And then you got to, click back and go like, okay, I'm cooking.
Wait, I need to do this.
Yeah. So that was crazy. And then our first, so the girls won the first challenge, which was the signature dish challenge. And we got to have dinner with Chef Ramsay, and like just having him at the head of the table and listening to his story is just, it was, like I said, it was just a once in a lifetime experience. And just to have him that close to me and, have him try my food, like, I think that was the craziest part of the experience, was actually having him try something I made.
What did you cook on the show?
So for my signature dish, I did a poached shrimp cavatelli. So again, going back to those Italian roots, that was one thing too. Like, now that I've been an executive chef for 2 years now, and it's just kind of finding my own footing in a way to see my style of cuisine and all that. So I basically wanted to put myself on a plate. And being from Huntington Beach, California, I grew up eating a lot of seafood, and I just made poached butter shrimp and made a shrimp stock and just kind of did my thing, and I got a 5 on that dish.
Wow.
So,
So now that you've been through the reality show plug, you've been through this, is there any regrets? Are there any regrets, or is there anything that you wish you would have done different?
Well, not regrets, because I feel like, and that's funny, I was thinking about this the other day. Because, when I got back from hell, I quit my job at the university, and then I got the job at BakerStreet. And if there was any time that if I did not get eliminated when I got eliminated, it wouldn't have timed out perfectly with the BakerStreet opening.
Funny how things work out like that, right?
Yeah.
And so Gordon Ramsay has a reputation of being difficult to work with.
Yes.
Okay. And so how accurate was that? And again, certainly not asking you to badmouth anybody, but I am curious as to if there's been a paradigm shift since all the COVID things, or because it seems like most restaurants, I've never worked in a restaurant, but it seems like they can be a hostile environment.
So I've been telling a lot of people, like, I feel like my generation of chefs we are pulling away from that old school hostile environment that we were trained in. I've had pans thrown in my face. You've
had pans
thrown in my face. I had one chef that would walk behind me and tell me to walk faster. And so it definitely was a very toxic environment. So just from being trained in that environment, being on Hell's Kitchen and having Chef Ramsay yell at you, it kind of was like nothing, really.
Really?
Because
you were battle hardened before you got there, you think?
Basically.
Okay.
Yeah, because we're all so used to it, and like I said, definitely we're pulling away from that culture, but that's definitely the reality of it.
Okay. And then, you talked about growing up in California. And now that you're here in Indiana, what made you come to Indiana from California?
Cost of living is basically the biggest one. My husband's originally from Indiana. He went out to California.
Where in Indiana is he from?
He's from Hartford City, Indiana.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So he moved to California to pursue music, met me, and 12...
And you ruined everything for him.
Yeah. That's why I tell everybody.
He was going to go do some music thing, forget it. But you said he's a really good cook, too.
Yeah, he's a really good chef. Again, I feel like I kind of tricked him. So we did live in Los Angeles for a little bit, and he was a guitarist for a band, so he would go on tour and all that stuff. So we didn't really live together for 3 years, I say, because he was gone for like 9 months out of the year.
Oh, wow.
But it just kind of worked because at that time I was working for Chef Antonia, and I was, trying to absorb and do everything I could for her and, learn from her. So I was at the restaurant a lot. I was there 16-hour days. And there was one day he was home from tour and he was like, "Where are you going? Where's dinner?" I'm like, "I gotta go." Like,
Sorry. Good to see you. Glad to have you back. I'm out.
Shifting gears a little bit, going back to the show. Again, we don't want to harp on it too much.
It's a huge deal.
No, please do.
Because people,
let's talk about it.
your reputation preceded you
Yeah.
because we knew about that before anything aired.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been gunning to get you on the show since we've heard about it.
But it's really cool to learn about you even through just the experiences that you had on the show and the way that you handled them. And one that really, really stuck out to me in episode 2, I think you were on like the fish station or something. Your station was like holding things up during service or whatever. And
Was it called the fish station?
Yeah, they called it
Was
fish
it?
station. Yeah.
Okay. That's
I know these things. I watch
Yeah,
it.
she watched the show. She was reporting to us about all the
I
things.
love
you said.
that.
And when it came time, the show is, I feel like, very unique in the way that your team nominates your own team members for elimination, which is kind of a scary thing on its own, and you kind of have to be humble and take what you need to from that. But you were up for nomination and things, and you decided to nominate yourself on that evening, and
To be released.
to be eliminated.
Yeah.
And you had said this quote that I thought was really, really good. And you had said, "I don't think I deserve to go home today, but I'm taking ownership." And I think that's honestly something you need as a leader. So taking ownership of mistakes that you've made and things like that. Is that something that you use a lot in the kitchen? Or are there any other philosophies on leadership in the kitchen that you have?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was one thing that I wanted to just stay true to myself, because at the end of the day, my teams are going to be watching this. You know, I need them to, like, this is who I am as their leader. You know, we all mess up, and that's what I would tell. I'd still tell them today at the restaurant. I'm like, guys, I don't care if you messed up yesterday. Today's a new day, and we're just going to start over. And in that way, I feel like ownership, definitely. But, you know, you got to practice what you preach.
Yeah.
Good for you. Good for you to have that foresight.
Yeah. Thank
Wow,
you.
that's excellent.
The NEI Pioneer Podcast seems like the perfect place to plug our Pioneer Awards event. If you don't know, each year we host an awards event to celebrate our region's pioneers. Just like our podcast, this event aims to showcase and share the authentic stories of the people in this region. Now, this is a community-involved event. We had open nominations in the fall, and now we have our category finalists. This spring, we will have community voting, which is where you can get involved to vote on our category winners. Then we'll be followed by the event where we will announce the 2025 Pioneer of the Year. If you're in the Northeast Indiana region, we'll encourage you to go to pioneerstartshere.com to learn more about this event and how you can get involved. Again, that's pioneerstartshere.com. Now, let's get back into the podcast.
And the other thing, because when Callie was taking all these notes for us for the team, in episode 3, you found a note from your husband.
Yes.
And it made you emotional.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that? About what did the note say?
It basically said, keep going, don't give up. This was probably like the 12th, maybe 11th day that I hadn't talked to my husband.
Oh.
So I think that was the biggest thing too, is like not being able to have my support system there with me. That was wild. So when I found the picture, I was like, oh my gosh, okay, it's like a sign, you know, he's telling me not to give up. So that definitely kept me going.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how special too to be able to, like, you're on national television and you're able to talk about like your wedding and your relationship and things like that. Has he been, I assume, very supportive of your journey and things like that?
Yes. So I was actually thinking about this earlier today. So when I met my husband, I just flunked out of college, actually. So I went to...
You and James have something else in common. Did you know that?
Yeah. That's funny. So I went to school in Rhode Island for culinary. It was just one of those things where I was like, I miss my mom too much. It wasn't... My original plan was to go there and then go be a chef in New York. But tall buildings give me anxiety. So that wasn't going to work out. So this was the weekend I came home from that, and I met my husband at a party that day.
Wow.
And it was crazy because he asked me, he's like, what's your deal? And I'm like, what? He's like, well, what do you do? Yeah.
What's your deal? I got game. Yeah. Go ahead, fill in the blank.
And I was like, well, I just walked out of college and don't have a job. I live with my mom. I'm like,
I'm quite the
"Ooh."
catch. You should really grab it while it's still here.
Yeah, right. So I just was thinking about that today, and he really told me, he's like, well, what do you want to do? I'm like, I want to be a chef. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it. And he's like, well, do it. And now we're here.
Wow. Speaking of which, was there a point in your trajectory that you really had to stop yourself and go, I think I made it. I think I made it now. That's one of the things that we bring up on this show, because a lot of the people that view the show, they want career advice.
Yeah.
And they want to know, do you ever really feel like you made it? Because I don't. You never do.
Yeah.
No matter what, you could do the biggest things on
Yeah.
earth. You're only as good as your next meal. you know?
Exactly. Yeah, I haven't. I don't think I have made it, to be honest with you. And I think having that hunger, and especially, like I said, I was in such a weird time in my life when I went to go do Hell's Kitchen, and then when I came back, it just ignited that fire again.
Really?
Yes. And I'm
What
not-
about it made you?
I think it was because, like I said, I really feel like restaurants are my life. It's that chaos that the mentorship with all young cooks, with cooks, that see you as a leader and all that stuff. One of the biggest blessings is being able to meet 7 of the most talented female chefs in the country with me, and then they're validating me, and they're telling me, like, get back to the restaurant. Like, yeah, like you didn't win, but get back to restaurants. Like, this is your, like, and that was one thing too. They were all so sweet, because I was one of the youngest females this season, and they're like, Magali, like, you're doing amazing. Like, you just keep going. Like, so I said, yes, ma'am, and I did it.
Yeah, something's working.
Yeah.
Would you say that do you still keep in contact with anybody from the show?
Yes, we do. We all actually still talk to each other. So this funny story. The other day I was having a brain fart with a feature I was doing at BakerStreet, and I was asking my sous chefs, and it just wasn't really, like, they weren't helping me get where I wanted to go. And then I asked Troy, the general manager, I was like, hey, Troy, I need help with this. And he was like, if you're asking me, you're not, like, this isn't, no. And then I started laughing. I'm like, what am I doing? I have 17 of the best chefs in my DMs right now.
Yeah.
So I asked them, and just boom, 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 and they gave me ideas. And that's the coolest part, I think.
Yeah.
Do you think that people that try your dishes, and when you're making your signature Italian stuff, do you think that what kind of feedback do you get on that? Have you gotten any negative feedback in the past that you took to heart?
Honestly, so this is one thing, I've never really thought about it that way. I definitely feel like I was a little bit more critical of myself in my younger years, because I didn't have the palate I have now, and it wasn't built to where I have it now. But I've always taken constructive criticism. But my biggest critique is my husband, because he knows me, he knows my flavors, and maybe it's one day I'm tired and I'm just like, okay, whatever, I'm just gonna put whatever in the pot, and he's like, really? That's a 3. That's not even a 10. Like, come on.
You can do better.
I like this guy. What's his first name again?
Kyle.
All right, I like Kyle. Hey, Kyle.
So, but he keeps me up there, and he's like, nope. He's like, you've raised the level this high, you can't go down.
What is your biggest categorical cooking weakness?
I put too much butter on everything.
Can you really put too
love
much butter on things? I mean, come on. Because, okay, I'm nowhere near at your level. I love cooking, though. And I can't bake.
Oh, yeah, that's one thing. I can't bake. So another funny story. So I actually did end up going to culinary school in Los Angeles. I went to Le Cordon Bleu.
So after Rhode Island.
After Rhode Island.
Okay.
I made a deal with a chef I had, because he had a fry cook position open, and he was like, I'm only going to let you do it if you go to school. And I said, okay. So that's how that happened. So, yeah, I love Chef Jose. I hope you're watching this. So in culinary school, you have to take a baking class. Like, it's part of the requirement. And the baking professor, I know he hated when he had culinary students, because we were all just like, oh, we don't want to do this. So it was my final. We had to make a chocolate ganache cake, and I wrote the recipe on a index card, right? So I misread my recipe. Mind you, I was going to school at 6 a.m. Okay, so it was pretty early. And I wrote 1.5 ounces of baking powder. What I meant was, step 1, baking powder.
Oh.
So we're all waiting, like, all right, it's the last day of the semester, we're all ready to get out of there. And you hear a big thump. And I was like, oh my gosh, somebody's cake exploded. And I thought it was hilarious. And everyone was like, Maggie, it's yours. I'm like, oh, dang it.
Oh my God.
It's my 1.5 ounces of baking powder.
Nothing
That's
adds
so
flavor
funny.
like baking powder,
Oh, my
really, if you think
goodness.
about it.
The professor was like, it's okay, Magali, I'll just give you a B. I said, okay.
So then you had applied previously for BakerStreet. But James had hired a chef already.
Yes.
Okay. And then how did that come about that you got in? So he ended up calling you?
When I was coming back home from hell, I was actually
It's so funny
flying.
to hear
I
you
know,
say
right?
it that way,
I was
but
coming
okay.
home from hell. I was actually flying into Fort Wayne, and I got a notification on my phone because, again, that fire just ignited in me, and I'm like, I need to look for another job. So I got a notification that BakerStreet was looking for a chef. And I already had Pete's number, so Pete's the director of operations.
Yep.
And I put my application in. He called me the next day.
Wow. And so what do you think, what's it like to work with James? Because, he was last year's big winner of our Pioneer of the Year award. So he was last year's big winner. And I got to tell you, just getting to know him in the period of time that I've been here, he's a great guy for us to work with. I don't know what he would be like to work with as a chef.
Yeah. No, he's a great boss. I don't know if it's because I'm not used to like Indiana friendly people coming from California because, it's so cutthroat.
It's different.
It's different. People are actually genuine here, I feel. But yeah, no, James is great. I've actually I just feel so blessed to have such a great boss. A lot of, like I was telling you earlier, a lot of the Hell's Kitchen contestants haven't had, the same repercussion I've had with James. So he's been so supportive with everything and getting behind me with this and with the restaurant.
So had you eaten at BakerStreet before working there?
So one thing that I do before I work anywhere, I always go in for a meal. And I don't let them know, just so I know, where the kitchen's at.
Hey, we've seen her on
and all
Hell's
that.
Kitchen.
Yeah.
What's she doing here?
At the time, they were looking for an executive chef. I brought my husband with me because, he's my number 2. So he's my sous chef for life. So when we ate there, it wasn't bad.
Was it lunch or dinner?
It was dinner.
Okay.
So we went in for dinner. Everything was great. There was, I think my biggest critique was they didn't salt the halibut that they had on first special.
There wasn't
and I
enough
was
butter.
Yeah, there wasn't enough
You
butter.
are such a diva.
I'm such a
Look
diva.
Look at she wants salt with her
That's so funny.
fish.
My boss
Wow.
calls me a diva too, my corporate chef.
We're in good company.
Chef Eric. But yeah, so I was very honest, and you can tell a lot from a chef, I feel like, in their journey when you see how they plate and all that stuff. So with the plating, I was like, okay, they're young, they're a young chef. They're still trying to find their way, but that's what you have an executive chef for, to help you and guide you to that level. So it really wasn't too bad when I got there. So I felt comfortable accepting the job, not having to fix it so much. But then, unfortunately, when I first got hired in, both the sous chefs quit. So I came into a nothing.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So, yeah, but luckily...
that's a dual-edged sword, though. I mean, you
Yeah.
get to create your own team around you,
Yes,
too, right?
yes, and I am so thankful. I love my sous chefs, Nathan and Vanessa. They're a blessing, honestly, because they're such hard workers, and they're just... They feel so honored to be there with me, and that's pretty awesome. Because to me, I'm just me,
Yeah.
But now with the Hell's Kitchen thing and everything, it's like everybody knows me.
Well,
You're famous now.
Well, and the old saying is true, right? Always work with the best, so you always win, or work with your friends, so you always have fun. And if you can get both of those in one
Yeah.
package, it sounds like you're doing it.
Yeah.
So obviously, you're a chef now.
Yeah.
And you love that. But how did you get started? Were you a kid? Was it just not that long ago? What made you interested in
I started
cooking?
yesterday, actually.
Yeah, who was
Oh, okay. Well, you're really good.
who was the cook in the family too?
My dad.
Really?
So
Okay.
growing up in a beach town, we would go fishing every weekend. My parents both worked full time, so our weekends were super special. And that was just,
What did your parents do?
my mom works for a classic car company
Okay.
in California, and my dad is head of maintenance of a business park. Yeah, growing up fishing with my dad, that was our love language. It was our connection to that, and insight to his childhood and him, fishing with his dad and all that. I'm a daddy's girl, so, and we would go home and cook the catch of the day. Some of the best memories I have are grilling oysters with my dad, outside, and the neighbors being like, "What are you guys making?" I love my mom, but she's not a good cook. She is now.
Okay.
Because of YouTube. But
YouTube
We
is
all
very
use
powerful.
YouTube. It's all right.
yeah. So my mom was just a really young bride. So she got married when she was 19, had me when she was 20. So and she just doesn't know how to season food, but that's okay. We're working on it.
We're working on it.
I actually had to prepare her for this question on Hell's Kitchen because she was like, "Well, what are you gonna say when he asks you how you got into cooking?" I'm like, "Mom,
It won't be you.
I'm gonna be honest."
I'm gonna tell the truth.
It,
This is Gordon Ramsay, Mom.
I could lie on the show and say it was my mom, but nah, I'm not going to do it.
And she was like, I think people from her hometown were like, "Oh, I guess Patty wasn't a good cook." I'm like, "Sorry, Mom."
Okay, so if knowing that there's pressure on you, okay, so you come off an internationally known branded show.
Yeah.
Okay, you come to a town that you're not familiar with. You're going to be the executive chef now. You are the executive chef now at arguably one of the best restaurants in the state, if not the Midwest. No pressure.
I love that.
And I'm a fan.
Yeah.
But okay, so you've got all that pressure on you. What do you think is going to be the next evolution of Baker Street?
The next evolution for BakerStreet is going to be marrying it with my style of cuisine. But I feel like a lot of people get scared when they, especially, the loyal customers that have been going for years. I am a young chef, and I know sometimes young chefs do have a reputation of, twisting everything and like making it over the top and something that's not really what it should be. But I learned this from one of my chefs, Chef Umberto Rebelli. He worked for a Michelin star restaurant in Italy, and then came to California for Disneyland. Obviously, you're not going to put Michelin star food at Disneyland because some people aren't going to appreciate that or eat that.
Right.
So in a way,
afford it, maybe, right?
Or afford it. So in a way, it's like getting to know your audience. And I feel like that's what I've been doing for the last 6 months at BakerStreet. I've been getting to know the audience of BakerStreet. I've been getting to know Fort Wayne. And I am very aware of little things where I'm like, okay, maybe this will work, but maybe not here. Maybe this could be for more of like a private catering or something like that. So in a way, I'm meshing the old with the new, but not too scary. So it's
Not too scary.
Yeah, not too scary.
Barrett McNagny is a neighbor to us as well as a sponsor of this podcast. Barrett McNagny is a law firm that's located in downtown Fort Wayne, and they were founded in 1876. Now, I'll do some quick math for you. That's almost 150 years of experience. That's 149 years longer than this podcast has been around. Along with their experience, they also have a wide range of practice areas. They are best known for their trusted legal counsel where and when you need it. If you're interested in their services or want to learn more, be sure to check out the link in the description below. Now back to the episode.
Getting to know Fort Wayne and like your new home and things like that, how have you felt like the community has embraced you or accepted your appearance in the scene?
I've said this a lot. Fort Wayne has been so loving and just opened their arms up to me. The other day, I was at BakerStreet and I was getting ready to go home, and my servers are like, "Hey, chef, somebody wants to come meet you." I'm like, "All right." And now I'm having a 20-minute conversation, with a table, and like just bringing those experiences to people. And like at the end of the day, that's what I'm trying to recreate. I want to recreate those grilled oysters that you had when you were a kid. I want to recreate that special meal your mom made or your dad made or whatever.
One of the things that you and I had talked about pre-show was that all chefs on the show didn't have the same experience going back to their gigs. And you and James had put together this little event thing coming.
Yes.
Can you talk about that?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So we are going to be hosting some dinner series this year. I have invited some of the Hell's Kitchen contestants to come do that with me. So the first one is going to be Chef Michael and Chef Anne-Marie. Anne-Marie is coming from Colorado and Chef Michael's coming from Ohio.
Wow.
So we're going to be doing a 6-course dinner. So we'll each have 2 courses, and then we'll be out to talk to the audience, and just excited.
James is such a pillar
Yeah.
in this community. He really is.
Yeah.
And the thing is that I'm sure he's told you the same things he's told us about how people are saving up their money to come to this dinner, and it has to be perfect.
Yes.
And if it's not, I'd rather not charge him.
Yes.
That's what he said when he was on the. Did you see him on the show?
Yes, I watched.
Okay.
I watched the. Yeah.
I mean, for him to say that,
Yeah.
and he really puts his money where his mouth is. So, can you talk about that? Your experience in working with him, how he is as a manager.
I think just having that level of standard where we want people again to have those experiences, and we have, because at the end of the day, people are saving their money. It's a different economy than it was a long time ago,
Yeah, it
and we don't get to splurge as much as we used to. So this is the way he makes me think about it, is like, if I'm going out with my husband and I work all these hours, I'm gonna want that meal to be special. I'm gonna want it to be perfect.
Yeah.
Right. So I need to do that for our guest, and I'm going to do that for our guest. And that starts from the top with James, and then trickles down to me, and trickles down to me talking about it at pre-shift with my cooks and telling them, like, guys, like, we need to communicate, because remember, like, if I always say this, if you would not pay for it, do not serve it.
Yeah. If it's so funny because we were talking and James and I went out and we were having a beer and we were talking it over, and I said, you're not going to get rid of the lobster bisque, are you? And he said, it's totally up to you.
Yeah.
And I've never seen somebody relinquish that much control.
Yeah.
And I think that's a testament to your abilities.
Yes, absolutely. Again, it's crazy because I feel like I manifested a restaurant, and now I have BakerStreet.
Yeah.
Hearing your story is super awesome. It seems like there's been many situations where the timing has just been perfect for you.
Yeah.
From meeting your husband, even to getting the job that you have now, making it on Hell's Kitchen, like all those things. It's really cool to see the timeline that you've laid out, and all of these like perfect moments of it just came up, and then there it was, and then we went for it, and now we're here today, which is super cool. When you were a kid and you were grilling those oysters with your dad and having those special moments, did you ever think that one day it would become what it is now and who you are now?
Absolutely not. I just didn't really think about this being my life, So I actually started, when I really thought about it, I needed an art credit in high school. So I was like, I'll take culinary, I'll learn, how to cook. That's essential.
That's a good skill. Yeah.
Because you're going to eat for the rest of your life, right?
Right.
Turns out it didn't count as an art. But I fell in love with the teacher, Mrs. Pelkey. So I took the class. I got really close with the teacher, and then I took it a second year, and she was like, Magali, you're good at this. And I was like, really? And she's the one, I was like, really, you think so? And she's the one that pushed me to apply for the Culinary University in Rhode Island. So she was my biggest supporter, and just, she's why I'm here today. So
What do you think you would have been if you had not become an executive chef?
I probably would have been a historian. I love history.
Really?
Yeah, I love history and all that. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Now you can just make like historical dishes. Or
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, right?
Here, this is when people used to cook with, big globs of butter. The younger crowd that watches the show, they always want to hear advice. And it's easy to say, "Oh, stay strong. You'll have a setback. You'll get over it."
Yeah.
But is there any advice that you've gotten or would give that you feel really helped you?
I was actually listening to a podcast with Chef Gordon Ramsay on it. And it kind of gave me an insight to, like, not only did I went to hell and I did all that, but now hearing him talk about it, that was cool. And he basically said, you get better, you either get better or you F off. And every day is a day to get better. That's something I tell my team right now. Like, I don't care if you had a breakdown yesterday. I don't care if you forgot to this or you burnt this. Today's a new day. You start new, and you have to push yourself because you're the only person that's going to push yourself to the degree of greatness that you can be.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Thank you.
You have such a positive attitude. Where do you get this from?
My dad.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I like your dad. What's your dad's name?
Asensio.
Asensio.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is there any time during your trajectory or so far on your path that you thought, God, maybe I can't do this? And especially getting yelled at on Hell's Kitchen.
Yeah.
Not you single-handedly, but everybody was getting yelled at.
Yeah. So there was a moment in my life, again, it's back to my younger years. I was 19. It was my first, it was my fry cook position that I had. So at the restaurant, we were the restaurant you went to for Father's Day. Because there was big TVs and it was kind of like a sports bar kind of, but not really. You know, it was my first Father's Day without hanging out with my dad. So I already felt guilty about that. And then I have just a customer just being awful to me because it was a chef counter and she was just yelling at me. It was just a transition period. It just didn't work out, whatever. And I was like, what am I doing? Like, I should be with my father. Like, I have this lady yelling at me. And luckily, like, I was just so over it. And I remember he was one of my coworkers. He was actually a family friend, too. So the restaurant where we worked at, all our family has gone through. It's a rite of passage for you to work there, actually.
Okay.
It's a rite of passage for you to work there. Family friend, and he's my age at the time. We're both 19. And he saw I was mad. And he was like, Maggie, go to your car, sit down. And just like, you know, and at the time I smoked cigarettes, so he gave me a cigarette and he was like, go smoke this and come back. Okay?
Just
And
take a minute.
it was just tobacco, right?
It was just tobacco.
Okay.
It was just tobacco. But I remember being in my car and being like, I could just go home. Like, I could just leave.
This would be
But
much easier if I left
if
right
I
now.
just left, but I didn't, and I went back in.
Would
So.
you say that that's what makes a really good chef is perseverance and pushing through?
Yes, definitely perseverance and pushing through because, like, you know, even at the restaurant, you might be in the weeds, but it just depends on how you react and how you solve.
How are you as a customer?
I'm not that bad. I'm not that bad.
I like it that you said you're not that bad.
I'm not
Okay.
that bad.
I think what happens is these successful chefs like yourself, they develop their own tunnel. It seems like their flavors, their palates, their blah blah blah. And I think that it's easy to repress somebody else's cooking because it's different from yours.
Yeah.
Is there a chef that you really aspire to be?
I hope she sees this. Chef Antonia. She was the first female chef that I was trained under.
Yep.
I actually called her before I went on the show for advice.
No kidding.
So Chef Antonia was on Top Chef, and she used that platform to build her culinary empire. So she's someone that I aspire to be like, absolutely. But also Nancy Silverton, if I could, you know, I was talking to James about this actually the other day. It was a Thursday night, and at her chef counter, she just started making grilled cheeses. And that chef counter sold out for months because it was Nancy Silverton making grilled cheeses.
Yeah.
And I was telling James about this. He's like, well, maybe we can't make grilled cheeses at Baker Street, but I can see you doing something like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You know, just the latitude that he seems to give everybody. I think it makes the product, the delivery, better.
Talking about who you might aspire to be like and things of that nature, how would you define success for you? And has that changed since like you first starting out or anything?
When I first started out, again, going back to the old kitchen culture, there were not a lot of females in the kitchen back when I first started. I was either always one or there was maybe two more ladies in there, and that was it. I feel like when I first started, I just wanted an opportunity. I just wanted someone to give me a chance.
Just to get in.
Just to get in. And then I got it. And then, you know, then just pushing myself and all that. And I really don't think I will be successful until I can say, and I was actually talking, again, going back to Chef Umberto, when I have been in my career, when I get to that point in my career, my sous chefs will be executive chefs somewhere. My cooks will be in management somewhere.
Yeah.
That's how I know I'm successful.
There you go. Yeah, that's excellent. Is there anything, obviously coming from California and growing up there, how long did you live there?
What am I? 28 years.
Okay. And what was there anything about Northeast Indiana and coming here that was a surprise to you?
Honestly, I feel like, especially because we would come to Fort Wayne all the time. My husband's in music, so we go to Pierre's. A lot of his old buddies that he used to tour with, they're in different bands now, and they're like, hey, I'm going to Fort Wayne. Like, I'll put you on the list.
Yeah.
So, we're there. So we've been coming to Fort Wayne for, the whole time we've lived here. But I think it's so beautiful. It really is. And it reminds me a lot of Orange County. It
Really?
does. It does. It reminds me of Orange County. So in a way, it reminds me of home. And it's my home now.
It's your home now.
Yeah.
Wow, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, now it's time for the rapid wrap-up questions.
Okay.
This definitely varies from guest to guest how rapid they are.
Okay.
Results may vary.
Results
in
may
the
vary
in the
on the
rapidness.
rapidness, but either way, here we go. Number 1, what is your go-to lazy at-home meal? You got a long day, you got to cook some dinner. What is it?
Ham and cheese sandwich on white bread with lots of mayo.
Simple as that.
Diagonal cut.
Anyway,
doesn't
thanks
make
for
it
joining
fancy.
us today.
Yeah.
Baker Street will be closed down now. But no.
Cut it diagonally, and now it's really fancy.
Ta-da.
Would you choose a music festival or a food festival?
Ooh, that's a good one. Definitely a music festival, because food festivals give me anxiety because I feel like I'm supposed to be working it. So I don't think I
You're
can
like,
enjoy
wait,
it.
where's my station?
Yeah, I'm like, oh, no, definitely music festivals. I'm actually going to Warped Tour in Florida with Anne Marie this year.
That's
All right.
so fun. Okay, what is your favorite dish to cook, and then your favorite dish to eat?
To cook and to eat. I live and eat and breathe pasta. I love emulsifying sauces. That's like my jam. I love doing it. I don't know why. I just do.
It's like magic.
It's
You're
just
like
magic.
a food nerd.
I am a food nerd.
All
Oh,
right.
no. The other day I was talking about salt during pre-shift, and it took me 20 minutes. So Troy, the GM, was like, Magali, we gotta
I'm
wrap
sorry,
it
is
up.
that the Himalayan pink salt or is that the...
Appetizers or desserts?
Appetizers.
Do you have a favorite challenge that you did on the show?
I think my favorite challenge was actually the one with the soft shell crab, because that did not work in my favor. But I definitely feel like again, just having Chef Ramsay try your food and he told me he's like, I expect better from you. And I'm like, oh, yeah, chef. Like,
Got it.
I got it. Like,
Yeah.
So that was, I think, for it being my downfall, it was my favorite.
Hey, you learn from, mistakes and different experiences, so that makes sense.
So, yeah, I mean, how are you going to get better otherwise?
Exactly.
So then when do you think you'll be done with what you're going to change for Baker Street? Or do you think that's going to take more time?
I think it's going to take me a little bit more time. I'm definitely going to be adding some things to the menu and changing up a little bit of things. But again, it's not going to be crazy. I think I want to go, what I want to take Baker Street to is for it to remind you of a classic supper club. Like when they were back in the 90s. I listen to Kitchen Confidential at least twice a year.
Oh my God.
So I have an hour drive to Fort Wayne. So I love hearing Anthony Bourdain and hearing him, working in supper clubs and stuff like that. So just, again, taking the old and meshing it with the new.
Magali, I can't thank you enough for being here. And I got to tell you, we're all very excited about the changes coming to Baker Street. And I think your biggest fan is right here because she took copious notes on
I told her before when we were doing some producing things, I was like, the best days of my job were when I was doing research for the podcast and I just was watching Hell's Kitchen all day. That was really awesome.
Yeah, and I can't emphasize it enough. Baker Street is a pillar of the community. James is a pillar of the community, and we're so excited to see what you can do with it. So we wish you nothing but luck. Well, thanks again, everybody, for joining us on the NEI Pioneer Podcast. Remember, you can find us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and of course, you can always find us at pioneerstartshere.com. Pioneerstartshere.com. Running out of breath. Thanks, everybody.
Go eat at Baker Street now.